Hello, buddy. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Friday, July 8th, 2025. We're, of course, through the first full week of August 2025. Hope everybody's had a good week this week. Of course, as always, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, let's see. Um, did actually among the cartoons I watched today included the first ever Andy Panda cartoon, Life Begins with Andy Panda, back in 1930, October 1939. So that was pretty interesting to watch. Um, anyways, friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let me see now. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Alrighty then. So let's see. So we're getting closer to 3 o'clock. Also saw, of course, the MGM classic, The Blue Danube, which was basically a cartoon based on the classical musical piece, of course. So, anyways, we'll just wait for a few more seconds here, then I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. Let's see. All right, well, we're coming up on 2:50 here, so might as well. So basically, I got a couple of stories going to go over tonight from Bounding into Comics. Um, both more or less anime related. As in one story, One Piece and Dragon Ball series director says Western audiences love anime because they're, quote, tired of Disney style predictable harmony in animation. And then also, the other article we're going to be talking about, original Hellboy screenwriter reveals scrap plans for, and we'll wait to see what those are. So those are the two articles, both from Bounding into Comics. Then we're also going to get caught up on all the latest in the wrestling news. We're going to look back to last night's TNA Impact and Ring of Honor Club, as well as look ahead to tonight's SmackDown and tomorrow night's Collision. And we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being done and said, why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, a friendly reminder, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Let me go ahead and pull up the first article here. We're going to go over. All right, so here's the first article we're going to be looking at here. Um, all right. One Piece One Piece Dragon Ball series director said Western audiences love anime because they're, quote, tired of Disney style predictable harmony in animation, unquote. Article by Spencer McCooley, published back on August 7th, which was yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, see what's going on here. In offering his 2 cents on the medium's ever growing worldwide popularity, noted Dragon Ball and One Piece director uh, Tatsuya Nagamine believes that Western audiences have become so interested in anime because local animation productions, particularly those that came out of Hollywood, are too afraid to break the, in small quotes, Disney style formula of storytelling. A veteran Toei animation director whose credits include Dragon Ball Super episodes 77 to 31, One Piece episodes 892 to 1122, Powerpuff Girls Z, and the cinematic outings One Piece Film Z and Dragon Ball Super, Nagamine shared his thoughts on the rapid growth of the Western anime fandom during a recent interview on the topic given to Japanese news outlet President Online. Speaking to his over 30 plus year experience in the industry, um, the director recalled that thanks to Western audiences needing to be outright impressed by a given anime in order to give the medium any due, it thanks to the digitization of production work in the late 90s that it became financially feasible to produce such high quality works en masse. Quote, until now, a 20-minute anime was produced with 3,000 to 3,000 to 3,500 drawings, unquote, he explained, per a machine translation of his interview provided by DeepL. Quote, even in a digital environment, it took 3 months and 100 to 200 people to draw 3,000 drawings, unquote. Quote, now the number of drawings exceeds 10,000. The number has increased because the drawings are more detailed and the characters' movements have become more precise. The increased precision in artwork is both a demand from viewers and a result of competition among animation companies. Without high quality, you can't win. Additionally, when considering the overseas market, you have to keep improving quality. Quote, the animation market is global. When a new anime is created, creators from around the world gather saying, in smaller quotes, this looks interesting, on smaller quote. Overseas creators who grew up watching One Piece apply online. There are people who have become famous by working on Japanese animation while living overseas. Quote, nowadays, niche anime can be produced by a small team in about three months. If released overseas, it can easily generate 100 to 200 million yen, unquote. Oh, that's quite an interesting um, work rate report there. Hmm. To this end, Nagamine then posited that while the lowering of cost made anime easier to produce and share, it was the visual and narrative novelty of the resulting works, especially when compared to the Disney, to the, in smaller quotes, Disney rehash, on smaller quote, of almost every Western studio that endeared it to overseas audiences. For example, if you watch a fashion show by a French designer, you'll see outfits that are almost nude. French creators come up with designs that make you think, in smaller quotes, I can't wear that, on smaller quote. Japanese anime creators are like French fashion designers. The whole world eagerly awaits their strange and extraordinary creations. Quote, also, Japanese anime is mainly broadcast on television, so it changes every 3 months. There's a wide range of different works being produced, one after the other. It's not predictable like Disney. I think overseas anime fans are already tired of Disney style predictable anime. Quote, why is Japanese anime popular worldwide? It's because of its eccentric works. The unique appeal of unpredictable, bizarre content is currently exclusive to Japanese anime. Hmm. And more than just one man's opinion, Nagamine's thoughts were echoed by Toei Animation director Shinji Shimizu, who, in offering his own thoughts to President Online, asserted, quote, as director Nagamine said, there are many people overseas who are tired of Disney animation. I guess end quote there. Quote, in the past, America wouldn't show animation from other countries, especially Japanese animation, in its cinemas. There was a confidence that Disney was American animation and a cold view of Asians. Also, Japanese animation comes from manga, right? Characters are carefully drawn. Disney, on the other hand, has a set story. The story must always have a happy ending. Quote, however, Japanese anime is made in a way that even adults can understand, such as main character dying midway through, or a character thought to be a bad guy turning out to be a hero. Japanese anime, that second one, bad guy turning out to be a hero, reminds me a little bit of Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho. Um, and there have been a number of characters who've died midway through an anime or during the course of an anime, including, of course, Goku a couple of times in Dragon Ball. Let's see. Um, Goku a couple of times in Dragon Ball. I think Frieza died and came back to life. Um, they did touch upon Raizen's death in Yu Yu Hakusho. Um, Edward, Trish Elric in Full Metal Alchemist, among other examples. Hmm. Japanese anime started out as a niche industry, so it's free to do whatever it wants. There is a demographic in America that is tired of Disney, and these people have started to support Japanese anime, saying, in small quote, Japanese anime is great, unsmall quote. Quote, I think the change came from France with the release of Captain Tsubasa, Grenadier, and Captain Harlock. French and Italian boys realized that Japanese anime was different from Disney anime. Japanese anime wasn't just about serious, kind-hearted characters like in Disney, but also about soccer and battles between robots. Boys found that kind of thing interesting. Well, the soccer aspect, particularly in Europe, because soccer's like in Europe, the European countries, soccer is kind of the national pastime, or I guess in this case, the continental pastime, as it were. Boys found that kind of thing interesting. Girls watched Candy Candy and Sailor Moon and realized that there were different kind of animation from Disney. Then Dragon Ball and One Piece increased the number of fans of Japanese anime. Finally, the producer behind such notable outings as Daft Punk's Interstellar 555, Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods, and Resurrection F, and every one of One Piece's cinematic efforts closed out the discussion with a general quote unquote lay of the land regarding the past, present, and future of international anime relations. Quote, in small quotes, starting in France, the Middle East, Asia, South America, are becoming one world through anime. The United States has also changed. People are coming to like Japan through anime. Quote, Japanese anime is also popular in China. However, monster themed anime like Gigi no Kitaro doesn't work. It's not that it's bad, but Chinese people just don't accept monsters and ghosts. But EQ-san is super popular. We even got an offer from China to make an anime where pandas and EQ-san star together. Hmm. Quote, the only place in the world where Japanese anime hasn't made it its hasn't made it is parts of Africa. Even Ukraine and Russia are watching Japanese anime now. Latin countries like France, Italy, and Spain watch Japanese anime. Germany and UK aren't as into it. There are otaku, but they're not anime fans. France is definitely the top. Shigeru Mizuki's war manga, in brackets here, Soin Gyokusai Seiyo, in the English translation being Onward Towards Our Noble Deaths, on parentheses, won the Best Comic Award at the 2009 Angoulême International Comics Festival. Even such a low-key manga is appreciated by the French. French people must have a very similar sensibility to Japanese people. Quote, what the world is paying attention to is Japanese culture within anime. Not kabuki or sumo, but ordinary life. Currently, middle and high school life is in the spotlight. Well, okay, but that thing, okay, the whole idea of middle school and high school being the main settings for a lot of animes, and basically and having your main characters being anywhere between 13 and 18 years old, that's in a lot of animes, and that goes all the way. I mean, you just look back at a number of some of the, One Piece, Luffy is 17, 18 throughout much of it. Nami is, I think, like 19. Let's see. Edward Elric, I think, is 16. Yusuke Urameshi's 14, right? I know the main cast of such harem / animes as like Magic Kano, Maburaho. A lot of them are somewhere in the 13 to 18 range. Let's see, Sister Princess, again. All of those are like 13 to 18. So, I mean, even some of the reverse harem anime, like the Wallflower and Ouran High School Host Club. Now, of course, Ouran High School Host Club takes place in a high school, senior high school, where the characters there are 15 to 17, basically, or 15 to 18. So, there's some prime examples there of what they're talking about there. Let's see. Japanese middle and high school students wear uniforms and enjoy school life. Moreover, children have been commuting to school alone by train since they were young. In Europe, parents take their children to school, but in Japan, children can go alone. Now, Grant, yes, in Japanese culture, you do see that a lot more, where kids are pushed towards independence from a very young age. They can go to and from school on their own. They can take the trains. Of course, Japan is considered one of the safest countries in the world, mind you. But, and, if you've seen a number of Japanese anime, you even have situations where, Japanese teenagers are oftentimes either living alone in the house, in their house, because their parents are away on business. Nana 7-7 is kind of and Nana 7-7, Nana Suzuki, of course, lives with her grandfather. She's in middle school. She's like 12, 13 years old there. She's a middle school student, entering high school. So, I mean, even in some of the more like kiddie animes, like Pokemon. Now, Ash, for the last almost 30 years, has perpetually been 10 years old. How you can stay 10 years old for 30 years is beyond me. Now, granted, that's a little bit of a stretch in this case, but in the world of Pokemon, right? You're considered old enough and mature enough to be given a Pokemon as a training partner, basically, as not just a pet, but also, a partner to start your journey with and go out on your own. So, that's what people are watching. Japanese anime has gained popularity worldwide by visually depicting aspects of Japanese life that don't exist overseas, unquote. Which I think also, with that, even makes people more endeared to the Japanese culture. Okay? And I think that's also what sometimes plays into some of the Western wokeness, because in some respect, within Japan, first off, compulsory schooling, from what I understand, and this may have changed since last I checked, but I think compulsory schooling, in other words, where you actually have to go to school, is up to the age of 15. Once you graduate junior high, right? Going to like what they would call senior high school, or 10th, 11th, and 12th grades, is optional. In other words, you can continue your academic track. You go to senior high and then into college, or at 50, or once you graduate junior high, you also have the option of either going out and getting a job, or going to a trade school, or going into some kind of training. Like if you want to, let's say, become a shrine priestess or whatever, you can do that. In fact, I haven't talked about this as much on the shows here, but I do know of a wrestling, or I do know of some Japanese professional wrestlers who are actually under the age of 18, and I know quite a few who actually started out as young as 11. Current New Japan women's strong champion Azumi, for example. She's 22, but she started her wrestling career at 11. The Hanan, Hina, and Rina, the three sisters. Hanan, who's currently 20, Hina and Rina, the twins, who are 18 right now. Hanan started, I think, when she was like 13 or 14. Hina and Rina started when they were 12. So, I mean, these are young women who are in their like early 20s, early to mid 20s now, and have been in the wrestling business for something like 10 years plus already, in some cases. Aza Inaba is 17 years old, and currently wrestles. So, but anyways, let's see what more there is. All right, so that's the end of that article. But basically his point there is that I think the point is there that people like what they're seeing when they watch Japanese anime, and it's turning a lot of people on. While Western animation companies are turning people off, either with the lack of focus on storyline and or the pushing of narratives and ideologies and agendas. Japanese anime just continues trucking along, doing what they've always done, and it's telling good stories. Stories that would make you want to join in the fun, as it were. So, anyways, now let's get ready to move on to the next article we're going to do here. And I guess there was some all right, so let me do real quick here. And then, all right. Alrighty then, so let's get ready to get on to the next article here. All right. So, original Hellboy, in smaller quotes there, screenwriter reveals scrap plans for live action, in smaller quotes, Lupin the Third, starring Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey as Lupin the Third. That sounds a little bit interesting. Article by Spencer McCauley, published today, August 8th, 2025. All right, so in making one of the most unexpected reveals in the entirety of anime's Hollywood history, original Hellboy screenwriter Peter Briggs has let slip that at around the same time he was penning the script to said comic book film, he was also hard at work on an ultimately unrealized live action adaptation of Kazuhiko, quote unquote, Monkey Punch Kato's seminal manga, Lupin the Third, starring none other than Jim Carrey as the titular thief. Hmm. Yeah, that is, I guess, one way to go about it. Albeit, I don't know if Jim Carrey's humor is really in line with Lupin, so that's the only thing. That might have been one of the reasons why it got scrapped. But yeah, I just don't know if they're like in the same vein there. But anyways, the noted industry script doctor blew the lid off the long dead project's existence completely unprompted on August 4th via his personal Blue Sky account. Um, so August 4th, that would have been this past Monday. So taking notice of a recommendation from YouTuber Movie Bob Chipman, Movie Bob in smaller quotes there, that audiences check out the 1987 Chinese horror classic A Chinese Ghost Story when it returns to theaters later this year as part of G Kid's Hong Kong Cinema Classic, the classics film series, due to, quote, how many things you've seen borrow from it, unquote. Briggs recalled that he had once had the pleasure of working with said film's producer, Suey Hark, as well as, in small quotes, Oliver Stone's producer, A. Kitman Ho, back in 1997, unquote. Hmm. In his next breath, the writer dropped the bombshell that the project was, quote, a live action adaptation of Lupin the Third that we would have done with Jim Carrey, unquote. Quote, Alex Ho, in parentheses here, lovely, lovely man, ended up losing the rights, so it never happened, unquote. He then explained in regards to the film never seeing the light of day, quote, craziest screenplay I ever wrote, unquote. And though he met initial surprise from fans with the note that, quote, I've done podcasts over the years talking about Hellboy, Alien vs. Predator, Judge Dredd, War of the Worlds, 2005, Freddy vs. Jason, other things I've been hired to write on. Certainly mentioned this along the way, unquote. Briggs still proceeded to provide curious fans with details as to what the film's contents would have entailed. Quote, there's a bit of everything from Lupin in there, bits of the Mystery of Mamo, in brackets, the Hayao Miyazaki directed Lupin the Third, Part 2, 1977 episode, Wings of Death, Albatross, The Castle of Cagliostro, Cagliostro, but a big storyline. No Lupin animated has even come close to the scales of craziness we had in our screenplay. I was surprised when I saw, in brackets, the 2019 CGI film, unbracketed, Lupin the First. Some of our stuff was in it, unquote. Quote, it had a flashback heist in Paris with Lupin's pop, a theft from the White House, a scene set in Antarctica with Fujiko, the theft of the ground jewels in London by robots, a fight in an underground lair in Paris, another heist in Venice, a robots versus Lupin car chase in Morocco, quote, ninjas versus Gaimon in a monastery, an Illuminati flying saucer abducting the Oriental Express, an insane seaplane climax on Mount Everest, and that barely scratches the surface. It was big. I wrote it at the same time I was doing Hellboy, and it nearly gave me a nervous breakdown. Writing something so intensely that it nearly gives you a nervous breakdown. Wow. Quote, no, in brackets, he wasn't straight-faced, unbracketed. There was a lot of Lupin being quite goofy. Lupin's interesting to chart across the various anime over the decades. Sometimes he's charming, sometimes he's insane, sometimes he's hard-edged and sadistic. There's a lot of inconsistency of tone, just down to be different writers and directors, unquote. Yeah, granted, he has his moments of crazy and zaniness, but I don't think it's still to the point of Jim Carrey, though. That's just my take on it. Quote, they said to me, Jim Carrey, unquote, unsmall quote, so I nodded and went off to write, unquote. Asked for a rough synopsis of the film's events, Briggs detailed, quote, after breaking into the White House to steal a valuable bottle of wine his father had himself stolen years ago, in parentheses, gifted to the United States president by accident, unparenthesed, Lupin finds himself vying with Fujiko to discover the secret of why a shadowy Illuminati actually running the world want this bottle so badly. He also noted that rather than as its producer, Hark was actually attached as the film's director, with the two having had one meeting in Paris. Quote, his English was non-existent, unquote, said the writer, and Alex Ho, the producer, in parentheses, the producer himself, Chinese, had to translate over. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh wait, Chinese. Okay, Chinese. Never mind. I was thinking of that old I Love Lucy episode. But the fact is, Hark and Ho were both Chinese, so it was that. I was thinking of the old I Love Lucy episode where it's like Lucy was arrested, I think in Italy or something like that, but but Lucy knew English, Desi knew English and Spanish. The Italian cop didn't really know anything more than Italian. I think one other, like maybe I don't remember what it was, but basically to translate things, it took like 5 people. You had this line where you'd start with Lucy on one end, Desi right next to her, a couple other people, and then the Italian policeman, and they went back and forth, basically telling each other in, their one of the languages they could speak. It's like Italian guy would tell the guy to his right, guy to his right would tell the guy in in a language that they shared, and so on and so forth. So I'm kind of reminded of that scene. He also noted that rather than as we read that part already. Moving on to the next thing here. Ultimately, though the project never came to light, Briggs confirmed that he, quote, would love to resurrect it as a two-part a Japanese animated cartoon, unquote. Quote, if any of the Lupin fan community have an, in smaller quotes, in with whoever is handling Monkey Punch stuff these days, have them call Alex, in brackets, Kitman Ho, or myself, and we'll get the ball rolling, unquote, he declared. Quote, I'll happily work with the Japanese writers to finesse it, unquote. However, despite his continued interest in bringing their live-action Lupin III to the big screen, Briggs admits that he'd make at least one change to the script, telling a fan, quote, if I were to rewrite it 28 years later, I'd want to hack out about 50% of the humor. I may have overcompensated. My agent at the time said that it was very Men in Black in humor tone. Alrighty then, so there's that article. We're done with the two articles. Let's see where we're at on time here. 42 minutes. So yeah, I think that's good for now. So, anyways, so with that, I guess we will get ready to. I hope everybody enjoyed the stories we did tonight. But anyways, so now of course what we're going to do is we're going to get into the wrestling wrap up. Now, one of the things that did come out today is that one of the things that came out today is that former WWE champion Jake Hager, known in the WWE as Jack Swagger, has retired from in ring. He last, I think, wrestled for AEW. I think maybe either towards the end of 2023 or early 2024. But he's basically been gone for a while. He was let go from. I just think his contract wasn't renewed or something to that effect. But he started his own trucking company. He's basically retired more or less from wrestling. There is some talk he might still do some independent dates here and there, but he's pretty happy with his trucking business now. So Jake Hager is officially retired. And with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look back to last night's Impact and Ring of Honor Club and look ahead to tonight's SmackDown tomorrow night's Collision. So first off, on last night's Impact, as they continue to prepare for next Friday's Emergence pay-per-view. Next a week from today is the Emergence pay-per-view for TNA Impact. Coming from the Thomas M. Ryan Center in Kingston, Rhode Island on Access TV with Tom Hannafan, Matthew Rainwalt, and Frankie Kazarian on commentary. The opening match saw for the international title, Steve Macklin successfully retained via double countout with Jake Something. They both were counted out of the ring. Then in a non-title tag team match, the Elegance brand, represented here by Heather and M by Elegance. Now, I don't know why they'd even have to say a non-title tag team match, as unless, but as of yet, I haven't seen the Elegance brand even remotely try to use the Freebird rule. But they label this as a non-title tag team match, in which Lei Ying Lee and Zaya Brookside defeated the Elegance brand's Heather and M by Elegance. Heather, of course, one half of the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions with Ash by Elegance, and we'll know why in a moment. Why it was these two representing the Elegance brand. But I still was kind of curious with why Cage Match here would call it a non-title tag team match when we haven't heard of the Elegance brand utilizing the 24/7 rule, or not the 24. I'm sorry, the Freebird rule. And Mara Sade in her first singles match since debuting in TNA a few weeks ago, defeated Vicious Vicky in just under 2 minutes. In a match for the TNA Knockouts World title, JC Jane retained over DQ loss by over Ash by Elegance. This was Ash by Elegance's title shot, but she won the match, but it was via DQ, so she did not win the title. The main event saw Mustafa Ali with members of Order 4 of Agent O, the Great Hands, Jason Hotch and John Skyler and Tasha Steelz defeating Joe Hendry in a one-on-one match. All right. So that's what we had for TNA. Now let's go ahead and go talk about what happened on last night's Ring of Honor Honor Club. Last night's Ring of Honor Club, which came from the Byline Bank Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, Illinois, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The opening match was a proving ground match for the Ring of Honor World title, in which Gringo Loco challenged Bandito to try to earn a shot at he recently had a shot the world title, and now is trying to earn another shot, but Bandito fended off the challenge from Gringo Loco. In a tag team match in just over 3 minutes, Jay Lethal and Satman Singh with Karen Jarrett in their corner defeated GPA and Hunter Holdcraft. In a women's tag team match, Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena and Billy Starks defeated Laney Luck and Missa Kate. In a six-man trios match, CML's Los Desperados of Magnus, Ruggiero, and the Volador Jr. defeated the Dark Order's Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. And in the main event, saw in a tag team match, CML's El Sky team of Mascara Dorado and Mystico defeated Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. that's all we got on the Ring of Honor side of things. Now that we've looked back, now let's of course look ahead. We will now look ahead to tonight's SmackDown as well as tomorrow night's Collision. Man, I got flies buzzing right around my head here. I don't know if some of you have faced that too as well. If you having flies just buzzing around your head like that. But all right, so tonight's Friday Night SmackDown is coming from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and apparently no matches have been announced as of yet. Of course, this will be the follow-up to SummerSlam. Of course, coming out of SummerSlam with, of course, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss becoming the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Tiffany Stratton successfully retaining over Jade Cargill. Solo Sikoa successfully retaining over Jacob Fatu. The only real change that happened is that Cody Rhodes did defeat John Cena for the WWE Undisputed title. And then after the match, seeing Brock Lesnar make his surprise return to WWE. Even though there's been much rumors that whether or not was he actually cleared to do so because of his involvement in the potential Janelle Grant lawsuit. So now, let me try to go back here and see what's up for tonight's Collision. I can find that. So on tomorrow night's Collision, coming from the Berglund Center in Roanoke, Virginia, you will see in a 6-woman tag match. Queen Aminata, Ty Mello, and Willow Nightingale team up to take on the Triangle of Madness of Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Tekla. In a 6-man tag match, Adam Page and Jet Speed of Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight will be taking on La Facción Ingobernables of Dralistico, Beast Mortos, Dralistico, and Rush. In a match for the AEW TNT title, Kyle Fletcher with damn it, excuse me. All right, I'm going to put some music on for a moment so I can see if I can get this fly out of here. I'll be right back.